force. We may not be able to hold the line if they keep this up.
You seemed okay up to now, though. What happened?
They have begun using Mythril ammunition.
Mythril?
About a year ago, the enemy captured the Mythril Mine we were working.
There was something in my journal about that, come to think of it. Let's see. Here it is. Mythril is a hard metal refined from mithril ore, mined in Eisenbridge. Over 80% of all mithril in the world is mined in Eisenbridge, where it is said precious orichalcum has also been found. Orichalcum is a precious metal unique to Eisenbridge, and the hardest material in the known world. It can be used to produce weapons and armor of the highest strength, and it releases great energy when melted at high pressure.
We tried to recapture the mine, but the sword bearers had put children to work down there.
Children?
Yes. I'm sure you've heard tales of canaries being taken into mines as an early warning for dangerous gases. Well, the sword bearers call the children they've abducted and forced into hard labor canary boys. When we tried to rescue the children, those cowards used them as human shields and barricaded themselves inside.
Using these canary boys to warn of danger? I cannot believe the Black Blades would stoop to such tactics.
It's despicable! Can't let them get away with it! We must do something to save the children!
What are we waiting for then? Let's take back the Mythril Mine.
The mines are crawling with sword bearer soldiers. It would be foolhardy to rush in without support.
Even so, we must take action. You can focus on retaking the mine. We'll rescue the children they're using down there.
What can I help you with? I'll fill you in on what we know about the Black Blade mercenaries hired by the swordbearers. They have about 4,000 soldiers stationed in these lands. They are split into at least 5 units that we know of. The first, a unit led by the Swordmaster, the commander of the Black Blades. They are powerful, elite troops. Next is the unit that conquered the East City using toxic mist. We are very aware of the danger they represent. They have not been seen in recent years, which is cause for concern. Then there is their naval force. They are rarely sighted in battle. But after the Temple of Fire was attacked, there were reports they made several attempts to approach it from the sea. We also believe that the Black Blades has a covert unit specializing in assassination. Many shield-bearer officers have been slain in the past 4 years. We think this unit was also responsible for killing the Fire Vestal. Last of all, there is the unit led by someone I care not to mention.
Huh?
If you're around long enough, you'll learn all you need to know and more. Best to see for yourself. There's a good reason that the lines of battle were drawn at this bridge. 3 roads run north to south across this land, one each to the east and west of it, and this one in between. The central road that this bridge is built upon is wider than the paths to the east and west, and it serves as our main thoroughfare. The colossal weaponry the Black Blades have given the sword-bearers is too large to be hauled down any other road.
I see. So the enemy was forced to target this bridge to make use of it?
Precisely. We made this bridge our last line of defense, and the main body of the shield-bearers guards it. The sword-bearers need to cross the bridge, so they cannot attack it directly. This strategy results in the least casualties for our forces.
But even if you halt the advance of their main contingent, wouldn't it be easy for smaller units to slip past by other routes?
Correct. Small squads we are not aware of present more danger than the vast army we face before us. What do you mean?
The enemy forces, attacking the bridge.
Oh, I see. The shock troops led by that brassy young woman. Our intelligence suggests she is a high-ranking member of the Black Blades.
That girl is one of their officers?
Don't underestimate her. She uses the power of song to bolster her soldiers and weaken ours.
The power of song?
Yes, her songs can be quite troublesome. All of our soldiers that hear her sing become confused. The sword bearers bombard us from the opposite bank when they see us in disarray. We've suffered great losses from these attacks.
Songs that inspire allies and confuse the enemy. She must have quite a voice. I'd like to hear it myself sometime.
So it doesn't bother you that she's a foe? I hope her honeyed tones send you tumbling off the bridge.
I have no ulterior motives, I swear.
So, if you silence this girl, would that swing the battle in your favor?
Unfortunately, she is protected by a formidable force, and the narrow bridge makes it impossible to get close.
Then, let us try.
Oh! Is this the wind vessel we have here? What a delightful surprise! You've come all this way to hear me perform? Why, thank you! I am Praline on a mode, prepared to be dazzled! Hey everyone! When you hear one of my numbers,
we go wild!
and when you see me dance,
We go wild!
then get wild! Here we go! Love in the crossfire! Steady my sights, get you to the
Yeah!
Praline! Feeling alright, squeeze you so tight. Love in the crossfire, ready, make fire!
Her song has them entranced.
Love in the crossfire, ready,
What a sweet voice! She's enchanting!
Don't listen to her. She'll mess with your head.
Let's do this! They're strong!
Don't they feel any pain? Nothing seems to faze them. Okay, everybody. Time to back up a bit. The time is nigh to blow them sky high. Fire!
Uh-oh. We need to pull back now, or we'll be obliterated.
I'm afraid we weren't able to break through.
If it is beyond even you, then we are out of options.
If only we could shut her up.
What's up? Oh, that ship? I haven't seen it since we last spoke.
Hey, have you ever heard of the siren song?
I have. A strange voice you hear out at sea, right? Sailors who hear the song become captivated by it and throw themselves overboard. It's a common tale.
That's right. The siren song that causes all to cast themselves into the sea. When I was even younger than you are now, there was a time it was heard throughout the whole ship.
A siren song? Was everyone okay?
It caused great panic among young and old. But a traveling bard who happened to be aboard said something that calmed everyone down. All you have to do is sing above the siren's voice. Brilliant, isn't it? He conducted us in song with his baton all night long, and the siren was defeated.
Wow, that's quite a story. Where did the bard go?
Who knows? He set off again soon after. One of the elders here might know.
Where did this fog come from?
Look at that!
Is that what I think it is? It's heading for us!
What do we do? There's nobody on board.
No, don't be so sure. It is haunted by the ghosts of the crew. Ah! You mean this is a ghost ship?
A shame that only the souls of men inhabit this place. I'd happily lay the souls of women to rest.
Aha! Guests that yet breathe, a rare honor.
Is he alive? Are you the captain of the ship?
Close! I am actually the acting captain. The real captain is right here at my side. But I suppose you can't see him, can you?
So this is a ghost ship.
Welcome to our pirate ship, the SS Funky Francisca. I am Captain Barbarossa, leader of the Black Blades Naval Force.
The Black Blades?
You must be the Windvester and her companion. A pleasure to meet you.
What?
How do you know of us?
I am a ranking member of the Black Blades. Of course I'm kept abreast of your comings and goings, Vestal. You have made quite a name for yourselves, in fact. Were you not aware? I have looked forward to meeting you in battle one day. I leave the helm to you, me matey. We'll make this a fair fight. Yarr! Yarr! The ship is coming apart! How clumsy of me to step through the deck.
No ghost is that clumsy. He must be alive.
I am indeed the genuine article, a man in the flesh, though the only one among my crew.
Why the ghost ship?
I sail this ship in search of a certain something, prized by the commander and myself.
A certain something?
You might call it adventure. Surely you don't have to be a man of the sea to know that.
I know what you speak of. A man's soul craves nothing more than the romance of adventure.
Well, aren't you two getting on famously, ring a bell?
Perhaps it is something women and children can never understand. If you think about it rationally, it does seem absurd. But absurd or not, it is adventure I seek. And the years I have spent wandering the seas in folly have shown me many truths.
That's it! The truth!
Now, let us have a little fun. See how you fare against my great axe! and your allies have bested me, Windvestal. Such power. Forgive me, Suleiman. Commander, it seems my time is up.
What's up?
Ah, look who we have here! Oh, look what I found while cleaning up the place.
Could that be the bard's baton? I wonder if we could borrow it for a while.
Really? What for? I certainly don't mind, so take it. I doubt I'll ever get any use out of it.
Thank you! Hey, there's something written on it. The most important thing is to have fun, it says.
What can I help you with?
Oh, look! The wind vessel and her merry band have graced us with their presence again! We haven't come to hear you sing, if that's what you think. Oh, please! Don't pretend you're not captivated by this voice of mine. Because we all know when I sing...
We go wild!
Shut it! You won't get your way so easily. Try as many times as you want, but it's futile. My personal guard would gladly die for me. Isn't that right, darling?
We're here for you, Praline!
Thank you all! Let's sing a little tune then! Love in the Crossfire! Very nice, I get you tonight. Love in the Crossfire, ready, not so fast. Come on, shield bearers! Love in the Crossfire, ready, make fire! What are you doing? This isn't on the set list! Nobody can hear my song now! I'll just have to sing louder. going back to ordinary life.
No, Praline! Don't leave us!
I'm so sorry, everyone.
The plan went off without a hitch. You drowned her out completely. We should suffer much less attrition on the Eisenbridge from now on. You've done us a great service.
We've come to help you. Are they really forcing you to work these mines?
That's right.
The shield bearers asked us to rescue you and your friends.
The shield bearers? But I'll be in trouble if the guards catch me slacking off.
You don't have to worry about that anymore. How many other children are there in the mine?
There are 20 of us on duty right now. No, make that 19.
Thank you. You go and hide in that shed with the others, okay?
Got it.
Hey, what are you doing in here?
That means there's 16 left. The shield bearers asked us to come and rescue you.
Okay. Thank you.
Only 14 more to find. The shield bearers asked us to come and rescue you.
So we don't have to work anymore? Yay!
We have to find 12 more. The shield bearers asked us to come and rescue you.
Thanks!
All right, just tend to go now. The shield bearers asked us to come and rescue you.
Thanks.
8 more and we're done. The shield bearers asked us to come and rescue you.
Thanks.
We've got to find the last 6. The shield bearers asked us to come and rescue you.
Thanks.
Okay, now there's just 4 to go. The shield bearers asked us to come and rescue you.
Thanks.
Just 2 more! The shield bearers asked us to come and rescue you.
Thanks.
Great, now let's get out of here. taking care of all the guards. The shield bearers will be here to take you to safety soon.
Thanks, but what about Egil, the new boy? He was taken to the sword bearer's stronghold this morning. We haven't seen him since.
Why was he taken away?
Egil said something about finding a passage leading out of the mine. He slipped away from his post and was headed there, so he must have been caught by one of the guards. Please, you have to help Egil!
Okay, the sword bearer's stronghold, right? I'll go and help Egil.
Thank you. The sword bearer's stronghold is a place called Starkfort, far to the north.
Wait, Tiz! We should leave this to the shield bearers. It would be reckless to venture into the inner sanctum of the enemy by ourselves.
But I have to help him.
You've been acting stubborn ever since we got here, it seems.
I have to help him. No matter what.
What is that place? A sight to behold, that's for sure. This is where the Civil War started, right?
Look, there's a transport ship tied up at the moorings. It looks like they're pooling their weapons and ammunition here for distribution.
How are we going to get in?
We'll go right in the front door.
Don't be absurd! They'll be upon us in seconds!
So be it. Our top priority is rescuing the boy Egil.
Where could they be holding the boy prisoner?
We'll have to search the place from top to bottom.
Let's not be rash today. Rushing around blindly will only wear us out. Why don't we see if my journal has any leads? It might point us in the right direction.
You can't expect it to have every little detail.
Hold on, I've found something. Notes on the layout of occupied Starkfort. I guess I can expect every little detail, Edea. The notes show a war room to the north of here. The west is marked poison. That can't be it. That just leaves east. Let's head that way.
There he is! Are you alright?
Who are you?
You're safe now. We'll get you out of here. So you're Egil, huh?
That's right. Who are you?
We've come to help you.
Really? I was going to see the fire vestal. What was that about the fire vestal?
Let's talk later. We have to get him to safety first.
Here at last! That was a risky move, but we made it back all right.
Here, here. It's not like 'tis to go out on a limb like that. But we survived, and that's what counts.
The vestal.
He must be exhausted. He's sound asleep. You did well to carry him on your back all this way, Tis. You must be tired too.
I'm fine.
More importantly, this boy may know of a way into the Temple of Fire. We should ask him now. Don't you agree, Agnes?
I do, if that is true.
First, let's head to Commander Goodman's residence and give the boy a chance to rest.
Egil, you're alive!
Do you know this boy?
His parents were part of our household guard. They lost their lives 3 years ago protecting my husband. We hadn't heard from Egil since then. To think that he had been forced to work in the Mythril Mine.
Mrs. Goodman, could we ask you to look after Egil here for a while? We can't take him with us where we're going.
Yes, of course.
He's awake!
Where am I? I have to hurry.
Hurry where?
The fire vestal asked me to help. I have to go. Where is this? Where am I?
Wait, Egil! Egil.
Thank you for rescuing me, but I have to go back to the Mythril Mine.
Weaver captured the mine from the sword bearers. You don't have to work there anymore. All your friends have been freed.
I still have to go back.
Go back where?
Does this have something to do with the fire vestal, Eggle?
That's right.
Did you meet her?
No, I've never met her before, but I sometimes see her in my dreams. I really do. She always seems sad and tells me, go to the deepest tunnel. Lead the wind there.
The wind? The deepest tunnel? Does it lead somewhere?
Yes. Who are you?
She is the wind vestal.
What? That means...
This tunnel may lead into the Temple of Fire. Even in death, it seems the fire vestal is trying to fulfill her duty through Eggle's dreams. I must see this done. I must. Eggle, show me the way to this tunnel.
Got it! Leave it to me!
Wait! Eggle's in no state to go anywhere.
Hey!
Why do you object, Tiz?
Because it's dangerous.
Tiz,
How is Eggle?
he's asleep at last. Idia is with him now. Agnes and Eri are in a huff.
We couldn't let Eggle take them into the mine. It's too dangerous.
You know, ever since we found Eggle, you've stopped having your nightmares, Tiz.
Huh? Really?